Welcome to Vegan Business Talk with Katrina Fox, author of Vegan Ventures, Start and Grow an Ethical Business. Hello and welcome to episode 136 of Vegan Business Talk. I'm Katrina Fox, journalist, author and PR consultant and founder of Vegan Business Media, a content events and training platform providing success strategies and resources for vegan business owners and entrepreneurs. Firstly, a quick announcement. I get a lot of people contacting me asking how they can work with me. So this is a little plug to let you know that I offer a range of services to vegan and plant-based business owners and entrepreneurs. From online training and group coaching to PR, content creation and copywriting services, and one-on-one tailored individual private consultations. So if you're wanting help to promote or grow your vegan business, brand, product, service, book, or other creative project, head over to veganbusinessmedia.com and click on the Work With Me menu link for more details. Now for the main part of the show. In this episode, I interview Emma Osborne, founder of Citizen Kind, a vegan recruitment firm in the UK. After more than 12 years working for a recruitment firm in Asia, Emma Osborne decided to use her international knowledge and corporate experience to work with businesses looking to bring some good into the world. In 2018, she created Citizen Kind, a recruitment company that focuses on working with sustainable, ethical and vegan companies to connect them with the employees they need to help them grow into the companies of the future. And also to help people who are looking for positions in these types of companies. A passionate vegan, Emma's work is powered by a longing to see the world adopt a plant-based diet, a low-waste, cruelty-free mentality, and live in harmony with nature. In this interview, Emma discusses the key mistakes vegan business owners make with recruiting staff and what they should do instead, the costs involved in recruiting staff, including some hidden costs that employers may not consider, the benefits of using a recruitment agency, how the recruitment process works and what's required from the business to ensure the best results are achieved, tips for those looking to work for a vegan or plant-based company, interview tips for both employers and job candidates, and much more. Here's the interview with Emma Osborne from Citizen Kind. Hello, Emma. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Katrina. How are you doing?
I'm very good. I'm really excited and looking forward to chatting with you. I've been trying to get you on the show for a little while now because you've got such a unique business, and it's going to be relevant both from the point of view of the fact that you've started this very unique business in the vegan business space, and also for people who are listening, our listeners, vegan entrepreneurs from across the globe who are looking to employ staff. So very much looking forward to interviewing you. So you've got a background in recruitment and you now offer this service specifically for vegan and plant-based businesses through your new company, or relatively new company, Citizen Kind. Question I always kick off with everybody is the why. So what are your drivers? What are your reasons for doing what you do, and why specifically are you doing it through a recruitment agency?
Sure. Well, the why was actually the really easy part. As you say, I've got a background in recruitment, so I've been doing that for a very long time. I've also been vegetarian for a very long time, and then about 4.5 years ago, I actually had quite a painful surgery where I had to had fibroids removed. And
that what removed?
I had to, fibroids.
Oh, fibroids. Oh, yes. Oh, horrible. Yeah.
Which I didn't even know what they were. And that made me investigate what caused them. And one of the causes is overconsumption of dairy.
Ah.
So as a lifelong vegetarian, obviously I had been, traveling my way through as much cheese as I could eat, completely oblivious to the effect it was having on my body. and also completely oblivious to the effect that was having on animals. I'd been vegetarian because I loved animals. So when I started investigating all of this, I was really shocked and really angry, actually, that no one had told me that these could be the health consequences of my food choices. And so that was what kicked off my veganism. And so I'd say I was plant-based probably for the first year. And then that year really made me look at my career choices. And I began to feel increasingly like I couldn't continue doing my role. So I was an MD of a recruitment firm in Singapore at the time. And so I quit and took off and took myself off around the world to answer that question, what was I going to do with my career now? But really wanted it to be something that was more purpose-filled and meaningful. And so when I came back, I really played around with all sorts of ideas. So was I going to have a vegan food product? Was I going to have a vegan cooking school? Was I going to be a vegan blogger? All of the things that I'm sure lots of people think about. And even made ice cream for 10 days. And then got to the end and realised I didn't really like ice cream that
much. Good to know. How can you not like ice cream very much? What kind of vegan are you?
Well, exactly. Well, I've got a much more savoury tooth, so I could. And that's what happened. I started to make the ice cream more and more savoury as time went along, and then realised actually other people aren't going to want to eat this.
Yeah. So you decided to focus on the skill set that you already had, but to move it to a sector where you felt you could really make an impact. Is that right?
Exactly. Really thought about what my skills were, and then realised that actually maybe the best way was to take all of the skills and knowledge that I'd acquired in the 12 years I've been doing recruitment and plug them then into the vegan space. So started working with vegan businesses.
I love that.
And the why is really, really clear.
I love that. And I love that the timing is right, because you may not have been able to start something like this or, have it be successful as quickly a few years ago. But I think it's kind of, sometimes things are about the timing. And I think that's good for people to hear who are listening, who are maybe still in a corporate job and thinking about starting their own business, is to, consolidate that skill set and see how it can, be transferred into something that you're passionate about. And obviously we've seen such a massive growth in the vegan and plant-based sector that there's now absolutely a need for your services. So I love that. So let's talk a little bit. Well, first of all, actually, what about the name? You've called it Citizen Kind, which is nice, but tell us just briefly about the name.
Sure. Well, this took a long time. I mean, I think I went through 3,000 names. So I wanted something that really would appeal to everyone. And something that was an appealing, an inclusive word, and avoiding all of the slightly problematic plant-based and vegan words. I wanted it to feel very open, because the candidates that I'm looking to attract aren't necessarily vegan. Although obviously vegans are very, very welcome. And it was more to appeal to the conscious consumer who maybe was starting to, go zero waste, or to just think about their consumption and had maybe started to reflect that into their career. Perhaps found some dissatisfaction there. And I think, wanting to use your skills for good is something that, especially if you then start to adopt a plant-based diet, I think it goes along with that, part of the journey. And it's, because that was my experience. So I think cool. I think that was really why I picked it.
Okay, cool. All right. Let's talk about recruitment. So first of all, what are some of the key mistakes that vegan business owners, and I'm sure this is true of other business owners, but obviously for the purposes of this podcast, we're talking about vegan business owners. What are some of the mistakes they make with recruiting staff, and what should they do instead?
Sure. So the businesses that I work with are companies who are in the sustainable, ethical and vegan arena. And so, obviously, because they're more purpose-driven, they're offering more than just money and career advancement. So I think it's important to start with to celebrate that and shout about that. And because it's a real USP. So I think that's a mistake that lots of people make, to forget to mention it, because they look at everything else that's out there, and almost cut and paste, job templates and that sort of thing. But actually, it's a really important thing to highlight, because it's the reason that someone would join you over someone else.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
That's crucial, because I really do think that these days people, and in the future, people are going to be looking for careers with meaning. So highlighting that right from the get-go is super important. I think the other thing is actually thinking about your ideal candidate profile, and hiring people on the basis of their skills and competencies. We're all human, and so this can be quite difficult, because I think most people's tendency is to go for either someone that we know or is recommended to us through our network or friendship group, or family. But that's not necessarily the best thing for your business. And you really have to almost emotionally detach from those relationships and ask yourself, what's the best thing for the business? Because sometimes having people that you know or connected to you in some way in your business can make life more difficult. Because if there's ever an issue with that person, then that can be quite difficult to deal with. Or certainly maybe more challenging. So focusing on the skills and competencies of the person that you're hiring is very important, and also can help you avoid any discrimination or inclusivity challenges. If you're only looking at skills and competencies, then you can only end up with the person that's the best fit for the job.
Yeah, exactly. I think that reminds me of someone. I interviewed Susie Welsh on the show, and I remember one of the things she said was that a lot of vegan businesses only want to employ people who are already vegan, but that might not best serve the business. And we've obviously seen some of the larger businesses are having people coming in who've previously worked at, really large multinational corporations, because they're bringing, like you said, that skill set and that competency. So, that definitely makes a lot of sense. And often people, when they do join vegan companies, they often will start to move in that direction anyway, because they're so influenced by it. But it's not good to necessarily exclude them from the start. Great. Okay. Now,
exactly.
why is getting, because I know you work particularly at senior level, so we should be clear that you as a recruitment agency, you're not really helping people to find, wait staff in their bakery shop. You're kind of placing people in companies at quite senior levels. So can you talk about, just say briefly, why is getting the right staff member important, particularly at those senior levels?
Yes, well, I think, one day I'd like to be able to do everything, but at the moment, just given the size I am, it's at this sort of manager level and up.
Right.
So yes, I suppose the reason that it's so important to get the senior team right is they are really, your people are what makes a company great, and they're every business's USP, because every person is unique. So investing in hiring brilliant people really does pay in dividends later, because you'll get wherever you're going faster. You'll get there more efficiently with fewer errors, less cost than you would otherwise. Obviously, they're going to be your biggest expense, and so that's also another reason to make sure that you have got the right person in there. And I think there's the questions that you need to ask yourself when you're hiring, and actually probably why using a recruiter for the senior side is useful, because they can make sure that the questions that you're asking are the right questions, and help you figure out exactly what it is you need rather than what you think it is you want.
Yeah, for sure. You touched on the costs there, Emma. So can you talk a little bit about that, like the costs involved in a business recruiting on their own without an agency, and perhaps some of the hidden costs that they might not have considered or factored in, and also some of the costs involved if they do use a recruitment agency such as yours?
Yeah, sure. Well, one thing on the cost side is, I think it's really tempting to look at just the cost of the money. But actually, there's another one that is the cost of your time.
Time, I was thinking that, yeah.
Yeah, and one question that I ask the potential clients I'm talking to is, how do you value your time? And what would you be doing if you weren't doing recruitment? And how valuable is that activity to your business? Because I think time is so precious when you're running a business. You know, especially given what's happening at the moment in the plant-based and vegan world. Obviously, it's a race. It feels like a race, and so I think that's definitely something to consider. You're essentially employing an expert who already knows the marketplace to be able to help you find and identify the right person that's available at that moment in time at the salary that you've got. For you to be able to deliver that same value would take an awful long, a huge amount of time, more time than you could spend easily. Just to do the research even.
Exactly.
So I think that's something to consider that people often don't.
Yeah, definitely. So how does it work then? Do you take a percentage of the salary when it's for how do the actual costs work in terms of if someone uses your services?
So it's a percentage of the candidate's annual salary for the first year in their job.
Okay, gotcha.
So it's a one-off fee. So if they stay for 2 years or they stay for a decade, the price is the same. Although when they stay for a decade, I sort of think, oh, that was can I maybe have a bit more?
Cool. So obviously we know. I was going to ask you about the benefits of using a recruitment agency, but I think you've already kind of touched on that. It is that, like you say, especially when you've got someone who really knows the space. Because I know sometimes, a bit like journalism, sometimes journalism as an industry gets a bit of a bad rep, and I think sometimes recruiters can as well. But when you've got a really good one that knows what they're doing, that knows the space, it, like you said, it's so valuable to take up that time, take that time that the business owner could otherwise be using, and even if they did it themselves, they might do it wrong. Like they say, they may be asking the wrong questions, and they might not spot things that you might be able to spot. So can definitely see
the red flags is definitely a really useful thing that a recruiter can help you identify, because we're so used to doing it. And also on the softer skills bit, you can obviously on someone's CV, you can scan that, and anyone can do that and see what someone's skills are in terms of hard skills, if you like. But the soft skills, you don't get to find those out until you have a conversation with them. So
that's right. And a lot of, I suppose, a lot of plant-based and vegan businesses, especially at that level, they might not even be used to interviewing staff or finding staff at those levels. So I can definitely see the benefit. And I know that you work globally. So tell us a little bit about what kinds of companies or businesses are currently seeking your services since you've launched. And I believe you launched last year with launched in June last year, although I'd started a bit before I launched the brand. Right. So what kind of businesses and what kind of jobs are coming through as well? Give us so
businesses, so there's all sorts really. So far I've worked with tech companies, I've worked with investment firms, FMCG companies, restaurants, food products, charities, event companies, media companies, all sorts. And then within them, it's again all sorts really. So like chief commercial officer, chief marketing officer, head of innovation role. I posted recently, I had 500 responses for in 3 days.
Wow.
So that was a bit much. But head of people, operations director, food service directors, all sorts.
Wow, so it's a really big variety. And I should say as well, I should let listeners know as well that you actually headhunted me for a campaign which I was involved in last January. That's 2019, which was the $1 Million Vegan campaign around the Pope. And so that's how I got to know Emma. That's just for our listeners. So you really do a huge variety. That's amazing.
And actually, one thing I wanted to say just on the types of companies. So one of the features of the companies that I'm working with is quite a lot of them are either at the point where they're seeking investment or they've just got it, and so need to now implement a hiring plan.
Right.
So I think that's one thing to mention is that it's worth considering including recruitment in your budget when you're presenting your plan to investors.
That's a good
because actually
point.
hiring the right people in a timely fashion and being able to predict exactly when those people are going to be able to start by working with a recruiter can really help give investors that feeling of confidence and predictability that obviously they like.
Yeah, absolutely. And it shows that you know what you're doing as well. I think it kind of adds another. Yeah, that's a really good point. That's a really good point. So let's talk a little bit about the recruitment process. So let's talk about as a recruiter, what do you actually do? So from the time you get an inquiry from a company to actually working with them and finding someone and getting them in the job, just give us a little bit of a helicopter ride over what that process looks like.
Okay, so it starts, so if someone was to inquire, then the first thing I would do is want to go and meet them. So we sit down and talk about the job and what they required from the person, but also I'd want to find out all about their business as much as I possibly could, and obviously agree the terms and conditions of how we were going to work together, so agree a fee and a timeline. And then from that point, I would go away and write a job ad. I'd then post that job ad across different social media platforms and media platforms. I'd then be managing the response that I got from the advert over a course of about 2 to 3 weeks. I'd be headhunting during that time if it was a retained search. So that's where you'd be paying me upfront for a percentage of the fee. So you're basically buying my time in advance. And that means that I can then afford to be headhunting for you. Because the thing about recruitment is, if I'm not successful, I don't get paid.
Yes.
So that's why that works that way, because the headhunting obviously is an additional and very specific feature.
Yeah.
So then after 2 to 3 weeks, I would expect to have a short list of candidates of maybe 30 to 50. And then I would have interviewed 10 to 30 of those, depending upon what the role was and how many I needed. And then I would present the top ones back to my clients and talk to them about which ones I felt were the most suitable, and then arrange the interviews with the ones that they had chosen. And so coordinate all those and then manage the feedback. And then most likely there'd be a second interview stage where the candidate that they like the most would be invited back to present or do a task in the meantime. Right. They would then be presenting that to that client to show that they had a particular skill that they'd wanted to test as a result of the first interview. So I'd take the feedback from both sides at that point, and then whoever they wanted to make an offer to, I'd negotiate that for them and get that agreed, contract signed, and then help that candidate manage their notice period. So manage their exit from their current role.
Oh, okay, right. That's good to know. Okay.
And then so once you've got their first day and start date all agreed, then make sure they start on that day, no problems, and then keep checking in with them really until probably 3 months they've been in the role and it's all going well. That's the point where we'd stop. So it doesn't stop at the date the contract gets signed. It continues all the way through till 3 months after they started in the role.
Oh, that's great. So what I'm hearing in terms of the engagement or the time involved or the engagement involved by the business owner is quite minimal, or that comes at the beginning when you have those initial meetings and you do a deep dive and find out exactly what they want. But then apart from that, they're not really getting involved until, you've got maybe a very small number of candidates for them to interview, which have been highly screened by yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Got it. Now, I'm going to ask a question because I know people are going to be thinking about this, but what happens? So if despite all that, and it sounds as though obviously there's, you go to great efforts to get the right person for the right job, but obviously, occasionally, probably rarely, but occasionally it might happen, a placement doesn't work out after someone's been hired and it's just discovered either by one or both parties that it's not a fit after all. How does that work?
Sure. I mean, I'd say obviously using a recruiter, you are reducing the chances of this enormously. So where I'm working with a client and it's I'm the only recruiter working with them, and we've agreed a timeline, and I'm doing the screening. So I'm not sending them CVs. I'm just making decisions on their behalf and presenting back the 4 candidates that are the best ones. Where I'm doing that, and they've taken the time to give me a really thorough job brief, then 2% of the time is when that would happen. So it is really rare.
Yeah.
But obviously sometimes it does, and it's not an exact science. We're dealing with people, and when your product is something that can change, then yes, it can be obviously very disruptive. And I think it's important to, at that point, really look back and work out what could have been done to identify whatever the issue is, or indeed if something could have been done, and learn from it.
So what do you do, Emma? Do you kind of go, okay, well, let's now offer it to the second best person, and like, does the company have to pay you again, or how does that kind of side of it work?
Yeah, so it's it really depends on what the issue is, because sometimes it could be something that we hadn't even talked about or thought about, or that would be important. So it really does depend on it might be that actually they haven't realised that they needed someone with contacts in supermarkets, for example, and that was never part of the brief. And so I might have to go back and do a whole new search. So it is not there isn't a sort of one way that it would be handled, but in general, I offer a refund period. So you would get, if it was within the first 3 months, you would get a percentage of your fee that you paid back, according to how far along it was in that time.
Okay. Right. Got it. Okay. All right. That's good to know. I think
so it's not like
people don't necessarily know
you
how
get something back.
Yeah. So do you work exclusively then? Do you demand exclusivity, I should say? So, because you mentioned there that, if you were the only recruiter, because obviously with some big companies, multinationals, you're right, they can use more than one recruiter. But do you prefer to have, or do you demand exclusivity that you're the only recruiter, or will you also work if they're also other recruiters?
Yeah. So, I mean, I prefer it, because it means that I can do as much as I have in my arsenal for the client that I'm working with.
Yeah.
And also I can spend the time that I want to on the role. Where you use more than one recruiter, you actually almost take away some of the screening that your ability of your recruiter. So if I'm up against 5 other recruitment agencies, then that means the chances of me filling that role is 20%.
Yeah.
So if I've got an hour and I've got 3, and I've got one client who's only relying on me to fill their vacancy, and I've got another where I've got a 20%, so I've got 100% chance. And then I've got another that's only giving me the commitment of 20%, then I'm going to spend that hour. I'm going to spend 80% of that hour working on a role where I've got 100% chance of filling the role.
Yeah.
And maybe 10 minutes on the one where I haven't.
Yeah, for sure. And I imagine as well, you might even come across the same. You might even come across the same people as well, perhaps, mightn't you? Which can be a bit.
Yeah, sometimes. I mean, that would be lovely if I'm able to, obviously meet people who I can send to multiple roles.
No, I meant the recruitment agencies, like, those other 5 recruitment agencies. Yes. They could also be finding the same people as you, and then it can kind of get awkward.
Yes. Well, this is the other issue with it, is that it becomes less about screening out the right people, and it becomes more of a CV race.
Yes, I was just thinking that.
Own those candidates with that client.
Yeah.
And I hate that, because that means that you're not actually delivering value. You're just going, this one's fine, this one's fine, this one's fine, this one's fine. And then the client is the one that still has to then figure out who's the best, So
yeah, exactly.
I much prefer working exclusively. So occasionally I'll work it on a basis where I'm not exclusive, but it's normally only to just prove that the service that I can provide works.
Got it. Yeah.
And I'm not going to waste their time.
Yeah. Do you have like staff working for you, Emma? Because I'm thinking, especially what you just said, I think you said you interview sometimes between 10 and 30 people. That's got to take up a lot of your time. So I'm assuming that will then, you can only take on so many clients at a time. Would that be right? Or have you started, and I guess eventually you'll start to build a team out so that you can then take on more clients, which is not necessarily a bad thing, because I think sometimes when you go back to someone and say, well, actually, you'll have to wait a month, or, you've got to wait a month or two because I'm busy. That's actually it can be good in a way, because, at least they know they're going to get someone who's really going to dedicate the time and energy to finding the right person for them. Yeah. Well, I think so. Yeah. So I'm putting it out there on the podcast for those that are listening. Emma's worth waiting for.
Well, yes, I mean, that would be lovely. I think the reality is that by the time someone comes to a recruitment agency, they really, really need someone.
True.
And need them quickly. And so for me, it's really about managing expectations and making sure that I'm not overcommitting myself.
Exactly.
And overcommitting the agency. So keeping the number of jobs at a manageable level. But I am hiring because, I've reached the point where I'm getting enough in that I can afford to take someone on to help me.
Oh, fantastic.
Very exciting.
Fantastic. That is exciting. How lovely. Yeah. All right, now let's talk a little bit briefly about interviewing tips. So both from the side of the business owner who, once you've screened them all out and they've got the top candidates and it's now their turn to interview them, and also from the point of view of the candidate. So let's start with the business owners. So what do they need to take into account? What are some interview tips when they've, got these 2 or 3, however many it is, top candidates? What advice can you offer them on how to get the best out of the interview process?
Yeah, well, I think almost the job brief is normally sort of the thing that they would refer to, and actually, I would encourage people not to use that in an interview, because that can almost feel like a checklist. And a bit impersonal, because actually you're hiring a person. So it's important to engage with that person as an individual as opposed to an employee. So definitely, when you're doing interviews, do the bit at the beginning, find out about them, do some rapport building. So, what do you do at the weekend, and tell me a bit about yourself, and just relax them so they feel really comfortable with you. And what will happen then is you'll get a much more realistic idea of who that person is actually when you get into some of the more in-depth questions about their career, if you've already established a bond with them at the beginning. So that's a really I think that's a really good way to just find out who it is you're talking to, and obviously I think most people will have kind of a list of essential things that they're looking for from someone. But I think actually prioritizing that list beforehand, and really focusing on maybe 2 to 3 things that are crucial that person demonstrates in that interview, and finding out if they've got those as your objective. So almost setting that before, and then so when you come out, okay, well, they tick 2 out of those 3 boxes. And then they can compare them to someone else. Because people are so different, it can be quite difficult to compare them. So having that just those 3 items that you're looking for can help just steer people in the right direction.
Yeah. Do you help people with questions, Emma, or do you help them?
I will. Yeah, absolutely. If they're certainly if they're new to it, or new to that particular role, or any, I'll help wherever. I think one thing that is really important as well to help people compare candidates is to have the same questions for each one. And not to freestyle, because I think that's the temptation, especially when you're a business owner, especially in a startup environment. You're freestyling all the time. Well, actually, with recruitment, actually, a bit of structure goes a long way, and it can really help save you time later. That one answered that one like that, but I really like that answer.
Yeah.
So it can really help you pick. If you've got 3 really good candidates, it can help you choose the one.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You like the most.
Are there any questions, or maybe 1 or 2 questions that you should not ask candidates in interviews?
Oh yeah, there are a lot.
Give me your top three.
I mean, the obvious ones are around discrimination. So,
Yeah. Right.
it is not cool to ask,
are you married? Are you planning to have children?
Woman, yes, exactly. A woman, are you married? Yeah. Who pays the bills at home?
Yeah.
Like, oh.
What does your husband think about you coming for this role? No, I'm kidding. Yeah.
Honestly, it happens.
God,
it's a joke. It's so nothing around someone's. I mean, obviously, you can ask around their personal life, but do it in a way which is genuine. So, what do you like to do in your free time? That's fine. But yeah, so.
But look, ask you this:
to have a family? It's not.
Yeah, but let me ask you this though, Emma. If they come to work for, say, a vegan or a plant-based company, and okay, they might not necessarily have to be vegan, but what if you ask them, well, what do you do in your free time? And you find out they do trophy hunting. Like, yeah, how does that work?
You want to know that, don't you?
So you then wouldn't give them the job, but would they then be able to say, oh, I was discriminated against because of my hobby?
Well, so this is an area where there isn't any legislation.
Oh,
currently.
Okay, right.
But what there is there's been a lawsuit recently where an ethical vegan has sued his previous employer for unfair dismissal as a result of him blowing the whistle on their pension, their company pension contributions going to companies that weren't vegan.
Yeah.
Even though the organisation he was working for was an animal rights charity. So that has meant that recognised that he was recognised as an ethical vegan who had rights that needed to be protected. Is really going to open up, I think, in a fantastic way, for companies to really need to acknowledge the rights of ethical vegans.
That's right.
What the flip side of that is, nobody yet knows.
That's true.
We'll have to wait and see. But I would be very surprised if a trophy hunting candidate would want to work for a vegan business anyway.
True.
But who knows?
Yeah, they might just not make the connection, particularly if it's pitched as plant-based or a food product. Do you know what I mean? It might not.
Well,
you never know. It's an interesting time, isn't it? We'd never be having this conversation previously. So what about interview tips? Let's flip to the other side. What about for candidates who are going for interviews and they've been shortlisted? So any tips for them on how
I think actually what we were just talking about is important. So being honest actually is really important. So if you are a trophy hunter, it's important to talk about who you are and what you believe and what you do, and because someone in who felt like that is probably not going to get on too well in an organisation full of people who really value animal rights.
Yeah.
So it is really important, even though it feels like maybe it's the wrong thing. Then maybe the job's the wrong thing. So that's why honesty is crucial, because both parties have to be who they really are for it to work out. And you'll lead yourself astray on this by not
for
being
sure. Yeah. Any other tips for candidates? Just kind of general interview tips.
Definitely. So one thing I think is something that people don't do a lot of is asking questions in the interview. So, normally an interview will start with questions from the client, and then but towards the end they'll ask the candidate, so do you have any questions for me? Having some pre-prepared questions is really helpful. I mean, they'll probably have answered quite a lot of them over the course of the interview, but there will be some that they won't, and it's things like, feel free to ask about the other team members, what their backgrounds are. How do they work together? How do they celebrate success as an organisation? How do they reward success in their organisation? What because they're all positive questions. Ask about training, career progression, all that sort of thing, because they're not things that people necessarily will have even thought about. So that there are some, there are things that you ought to be finding out before you join an organisation anyway. So if they haven't thought about those things, then they probably should. And hopefully by this time, if you get a second interview, they'll have some answers for you. If they don't know the answers there and then. So I think definitely getting more info and showing that you're keen by asking those questions as well. Like, oh no, I don't have any questions. That's actually not very helpful.
Right. Got it. And what about when they're leaving the interview? Is there anything that, is kind of some do's and don'ts? Like, as I've heard, like, for example, some people say, it's really good to say, oh, I really am keen to have this job, blah, blah, blah. Or is that just kind of brown nosing and seen as a bit desperate?
Well, I wouldn't quite go that far, but I think if it can be seen as a bit desperate. So if you are really interested in the job, tell them why. So say, thank you so much for your time. I've really enjoyed our meeting. I'm particularly interested in this because it really speaks to me. And I know that I could do a fantastic job with X, Y, and Z.
Right, got it.
So make it specific to something that you've talked about. Yeah. But actually, the thing that I think will mean that you can leave the interview feeling like you've had the best interview you possibly could is to actually ask for some feedback at the end. So what concerns would you have about me doing this job? Is a really great way to give the interviewer the opportunity to give you that feedback directly. So you can then, if they've got something wrong, so maybe they say, actually, we think you're great, but we're not sure about you because, we're not sure you could do this. Well, maybe that's something that you could do.
That's a really good question. Wow.
Asking for the feedback at the end in an open way.
Yes.
So asking what are your concerns rather than do you have any? Do you have any is too easy? They can just go, oh yeah, no, it's all right. We'll get in touch.
Yeah.
But what are your concerns about me?
That's a good question. I like that. That's
can
great.
Work really well.
So just as we start to wrap up, a couple more quick questions. How relevant are CVs or resumes nowadays? And is having a LinkedIn profile, for example, enough?
I think they're really important because it shows just a very base level of what you can do from a presentation perspective. So if you need to be able to organize your career in a particular format that's easy for the reader to understand, and spelling and punctuation and grammar and all of those things are obviously important. I think the other thing is CVs should include details of your achievements that perhaps you wouldn't want to put on your LinkedIn profile. So it shouldn't just be your LinkedIn profile. It should be that, but with highlights of your achievements and where you've hit or exceeded targets or expectations in your roles.
Right. And how many pages? Because this is one of the questions that comes up. How long should the CV be? How many pages? Should it have a person's age or photo? Right.
If you're in the US, it's the standard is 1 page and with a photo. I personally, I'm not pro photo on a CV. I don't see that's relevant. I think a CV should be limited to your skills and competencies. So for discrimination purposes, I think no photo, but you do you. And then the rest of the world, I would say most CVs need to be less than 3 pages. The ideal, I would say, 2. And no photo. I actually have a template on my LinkedIn profile if anybody's listening.
I was going to ask you whether you help people. So they don't need to come to you as a recruiter with a perfect CV like that. What won't put them up, like, because if you're looking for someone, if they send you a rubbish CV, like, does that immediately disqualify them, or would you kind of go,
no, it
good for the job, but we need to fix your CV out. Okay, good. That's good to know. All right, cool. So finally, then. We talked about you launched your business a year ago. So just tell us anything you want to tell us. So what's next for you and your brand? I know you mentioned that you're about to hire someone, which is excited. So just anything that you'd like to share that we haven't discussed already.
Yes, well, actually, the Citizen Kind podcast is going to be launching in the next month or so, which is very exciting. So I'm launching that really to highlight powerful people with purpose, to show that if you want to have a career which is more meaningful, you don't need to go and work for a charity necessarily. You can continue to be successful in your current career, but just by switching your focus to more meaningful work. So I'm talking to business owners, and I'm talking to generally people who, everyday people really, who are doing all sorts of fantastic things to help further the vegan and plant-based movement and sustainability agenda.
So wonderful. And when is that launching?
It's hoping to launch end of Feb 2020.
End of Feb 2020. Okay, so depending on when this goes out, it might have launched, or
indeed.
Wonderful. Well, if it has, we'll put a link to it, but we'll certainly mention that it's coming up, which is fantastic. That's great.
There's a few other bits that I'm involved in as well. So I've got I'm working with the Plant-Based World Expo, which is going to be in October 2020, which is going to be
European one.
European event, the sister event to the New York one. So working with them to help make their conference program really, really fantastic and full of interesting speakers. I'm also working with a group who are called VLCM, Vegan Leaders in Corporate Management.
I know about them. I wrote about them for Forbes. Yeah.
Yes.
So they're
a not-for-profit.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm on the board with them. So I'm helping them get as many initiatives going across the world as possible. And what we're doing there is helping individuals who are vegans in the corporate world create initiatives within their companies to make their work environment more vegan friendly.
Wonderful.
The ones I've worked with most recently are Suffolk County Council. They created a vegan staff network, which was fantastic. And
a vegan health network, did you say?
A vegan network for the staff.
A staff network. Sorry, I didn't quite hear you.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's so far it's limited to Suffolk, but they're actually looking at seeing whether or not they can roll that model out across all the different county councils in the UK. So it just goes to show that from tiny acorns,
absolutely.
Grow.
Wonderful.
So that's really great.
Oh, that's fantastic. How exciting. This is wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, you shared some amazing tips, really helpful, I think, for both candidates and also for the businesses that are recruiting. So thank you so much for being on the show, Emma. I'm really excited to see, how you continue to grow. It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Katrina. Thank you so much for all that you've done so far and all that you continue to do for the vegan movement. It's truly inspiring.
So that was Emma Osborne from Citizen Kind. You can find out more at citizenkind.com. And that link is on the show notes page at veganbusinessmedia.com/podcasts and going to episode 136. Now for some vegan business news highlights. The Vegan Kind, a UK-based online vegan supermarket and subscription box service provider, has reached its target of £300,000 in its equity crowdfunding campaign after just 2 days. The Scottish company has generated more than £5.6 million in revenue since its inception in 2013 and stocks more than 4,500 different vegan and plant-based products. In 2019 alone, it shipped over 130,000 orders and has a social media following of 500,000. A rewards-based crowdfunding campaign in 2018 raised £65,000, enabling the company to move into a warehouse 4 times bigger than its existing one. Now, founders Scott and Caris McCulloch want to scale up even more. Having quickly reached their initial target of £300,000 on the Seeders equity crowdfunding platform from more than 1,000 investors, they're now aiming for a stretch goal of £600,000. Now, with retail in general taking a bit of a hit, it's fantastic to see a fully vegan retailer getting the support it needs to help even more people choose vegan products. Fantastic. More than 400,000 people signed up for Veganuary this year. That's 2020 if you're listening in the future. A 60% increase on 2019. Notable figures who took part in the initiative to commit to eating only vegan food during the month of January included rock legend Brian May, the lead guitarist in Queen, and investor Deborah Meaden, star of Dragon's Den, the UK's equivalent of Shark Tank. May loved it so much that he plans to stick with plant-based eating, while Meaden says she'll continue to eat mostly plant-based but will include honey and eggs from her own chickens. The UK-based initiative drew support from multinational corporations, including KFC, which sold 1 million vegan burgers since their launch on the 2nd of January. And Deliveroo saw its highest ever demand for vegan and plant-based food during January. Veganuary soft launched in Germany and the US this year and aims to expand globally on an even bigger scale in coming years if they can get the funding. I love seeing Veganuary grow as it gives people a chance to try out eating vegan while getting support and being part of a community of others who are doing the same. And of course, many people continue to stick with it after the initial month when they realise how easy and how brilliant it is. And of course, it's a great opportunity for vegan business owners to get more customers. So that's it for this episode of Vegan Business Talk. I hope you enjoyed it and found it useful. If you like the show, please give it a review on iTunes or whatever platform you're listening on, as it helps to get it seen by more people. There are more free resources on the veganbusinessmedia.com website to help you in your quest to build and sustain a successful business. And if you'd like to work with me personally on promoting and growing your vegan business or brand, you'll find details on how to do this on the website at veganbusinessmedia.com and clicking on the Work With Me menu link. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I look forward to catching up with you on the next episode of Vegan Business Talk. Bye for now.